So I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Try and remember the summer of 1980. Or, if you weren't around then, just imagine that feeling.
No phones, no internet.
Exactly. Just like the sound of cicadas and that really heavy, wet heat that makes your shirt stick to your back.
It's a very vivid picture, but I get the feeling you're not just setting us up for a weather report.
No, not at all. I'm setting the scene for a very specific kind of purgatory, really. I'm talking about the summer of transition.
Okay.
You've just finished 8th grade. You were, king of the middle school. And now you're staring down the barrel of high school. It's August. You're 14. You have no idea what's coming.
It's a classic liminal space. You're sort of in the waiting room of being a teenager. Society says you're not a kid anymore, but you're definitely not an adult.
You're just stuck.
Yeah.
And today, that is exactly what we're doing deep dive into. We're looking at a really compelling source. It's a personal memoir from the More Than Transgender podcast, an entry called E-Pri4 High School.
And with a title like that, you might expect something very academic or political.
Right, like a gender theory textbook or something.
Yep.
But that is not what this is.
Not at all.
What we have here is, it's like a time capsule. It's this raw first-person account of a kid just trying to survive marching band, for one, and dealing with a family that doesn't have a lot of money, and at the same time navigating a world that's becoming more and more confusing about their identity.
And that's what makes this so valuable for our deep dive today, I think. It's the layering. On the surface, you have this incredibly wholesome, almost Norman Rockwell kind of story.
Honestly, learning the trumpet, small-town life.
Right. But then, running right underneath all of that, there's a much darker current, an exploration of resilience and hypocrisy and these really hidden social dynamics of high school.
So let's get into it. The mission for today is to really understand how this narrator balances those two worlds. And to get the stakes, we have to start with the money, with the economics of it all.
Yes. The source opens with a detail that I think is so relatable for so many people, the tax return.
The tax return, yeah. In this house, the income tax return is not vacation money.
No. It's more like dream capital or maybe catch-up capital. The narrator's mom gets that check from the government, and she makes a very specific choice.
She doesn't buy anything for herself, not new clothes, doesn't fix the house. She invests in her kids. The brother gets a pair of basketball shoes.
Which are essential to keep that athletic dream alive.
Right. And for our narrator, she buys a trumpet.
And we really have to pause on the weight of that. The source is very explicit. The narrator wasn't even sure if their mother kept a single dime for herself. The feeling was she spent it all on them.
That's a lot of pressure for a 14-year-old, isn't it? You're not just holding an instrument.
No. You're holding your mother's sacrifice. It turns a hobby into, like, a mandate. You have to get good at this. If you don't, that money was wasted.
Which brings us to the learning curve. And this part is, honestly, it's one of the funniest bits in the whole story.
Oh, it's great.
So you can picture it. You've got this shiny new trumpet. The case smells like velvet and brass. You're all excited. You put it to your lips.
And nothing, just silence.
Just air. The narrator says they blew and blew and nothing came out. And the family's reaction isn't, oh, maybe you're doing it wrong.
No. Their reaction is, we've been scammed.
Yes. They think the machine is broken. They pack it all up. They go back to the music store to confront the owner. They're probably thinking, we spent the tax money on a lemon.
And the store owner, you can just picture this guy. He doesn't give them a refund. He just looks at the kid and points out this one tiny little thing.
He just says, you aren't pursing your lips.
It's such a simple fix, but it's everything. The trumpet needs that resistance, that buzz you create with your body. The instrument just amplifies it. Without that, it's useless.
But the owner doesn't even teach them how to do it. He just says, go see the music teacher at school. And I love this detail. The teacher didn't just blow them off.
No, he really invested. He kept the narrator after school for weeks.
Just drilling scales. Repetition. So we see this transition from total incompetence to, actual competence. And once that skill is unlocked, we get this wonderful, almost cinematic image.
Ah, yes. The narrator describes playing the song, I Love You Truly.
And they're playing it along with the local courthouse bells.
Yeah?
Can't you just see that? A small town in 1980, the bells are ringing, this kid's on the porch, playing the trumpet. It sounds so idyllic.
It really does. It's like harmony. They've mastered the tool. They've justified the purchase. But of course, it wouldn't be a family story without a little conflict.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the grandpa.
The great bugle versus trumpet war.
It's such a classic generational thing, right? The narrator is so proud of playing the trumpet.
And the grandfather just digs his heels in. It's a bugle.
They would actually argue about it. The narrator's like, it has valves, look, it's a trumpet. And Grandpa's just not having it.
It's a small detail, but it says so much about, trying to be seen and heard when you're young. You say, I am this, and an adult says, no, you're that.
But even with the argument, the source makes it clear there was pride. The cousins, the aunts, everyone was impressed. The narrator finally had a skill.
But just when you get comfortable, the goalposts move. Because in high school, it's not enough to just be good at something. You have to join the machine.
The ultimatum.
The music teacher drops a bomb. He says, time's running out. You know how to play. Now you need to sign up for band camp.
You have to learn to march and play at the same time, become part of the unit.
And the narrator's reaction is just, I went for it. I love that confidence. But then, of course, reality hits. And if you've ever done band camp, you know.
Oh, yeah. For those who haven't, it's basically boot camp for musicians. The schedule is intense. You're up early. The source says they're greeting Mr. Sun with stretches.
Then morning practice, a quick lunch break at home, and then right back for drills until, early evening.
The narrator says it felt like months, but it was really only 2 or 3 weeks.
That's how you know it's grueling.
Yeah.
And the weather. Just hot. Sticky.
And of course, the true nemesis of any marching band.
The mosquito.
The mosquitoes.
Wow.
This is where the real discipline comes in. The narrator tells this story about being in formation, holding their trumpet.
And just getting eaten alive.
Eaten alive. And you can't move. That is the cardinal rule. You are a statue.
And they talk about driving the band director nuts with all their fidgeting because they just couldn't take it. It's funny, but it's also so visceral. You can feel that itch just hearing it.
It's a total test of will. You have to override your body's instinct to swat the bug, all for the performance. It's a form of conditioning, really.
And that kind of brings us to the social side of things, because once that uniform goes on, the whole dynamic changes.
Okay, let's talk about the uniform. The source describes the summer uniform. Black and yellow short shorts and a t-shirt.
Very 1980s. But this brings up a really interesting point about body image. The narrator talks about the comments they got about their legs.
Right. People telling them their legs were skinny and perfect.
It went even further than that.
Yeah.
People apparently swore the narrator was wearing pantyhose because their legs looked so smooth.
Now, stop and think about that. You are, as far as the world knows, a teenage boy in 1980, and you're getting compliments that your legs look like they're in pantyhose.
It's a confusing signal, to say the least.
It's this really complex intersection, right? You have the narrator who is already navigating their own gender identity internally, and now they're getting all this external feedback that's so focused on their appearance in this, well, in a very female-coded way.
It's validation, but it's also a spotlight. It makes them different. And being different in high school, that usually puts a target on your back.
The source says high school brought new challenges with being picked on, but the narrator's reaction is what's so fascinating. They didn't shrink.
No, they stood their ground. The source notes that things never got too out of hand, but there were confrontations. They even say they were intimidating to some of the girls who wanted to argue.
Which tells you the narrator had a presence. They weren't just a wallflower, but even as they're holding this trumpet, fighting off bullies, their eyes are starting to wander.
To a different part of the field.
To the majorettes, to the batons.
The trumpet got them in the door, but the baton was the real passion. And this is where we get this incredible piece of internal monologue. I think this is like the thesis statement for the narrator's whole personality.
You're talking about the line about being flaming.
Yes. The narrator says, and I'm quoting here, I figured if I was going to be flaming, I was going to go all out.
That is such a powerful statement of agency. It's a strategic choice. The narrator basically realizes, okay, people are already labeling me. They're looking at my legs. They're calling me names. So if that's the performance they expect, I'm going to own it. I'm going to be the best at it.
It's taking an insult and turning it into armor.
Yeah.
But, okay, how do you learn to twirl when you're supposed to be playing the trumpet?
Subterfuge?
A double life. The narrator describes fake playing the trumpet during the halftime show practice.
Right. They're moving the valves, puffing their cheeks, looking the part.
But they're not reading the music. They're studying the majorettes' routines.
That's some serious multitasking. Performing one role while you're secretly training for another.
And then going home and practicing in the yard. They even got tips from the majorettes and a former drum major. They learned the secret was all in the timing.
Which, as the narrator points out, was a tip they'd need for future reference. It's the secret mastery. Everyone thinks they're a trumpet player, but privately, they're becoming a twirler.
It really highlights this deep disconnect, though. The narrator is there, in the band, playing the male part.
But their spirit is with the twirlers, and that disconnect extends to the whole reason they're there in the first place, the football games.
Oh, this part is hilarious. It's the ultimate art versus sport battle. You are at every single game. You're on the field, supporting the team, but the narrator admits they were totally out of touch with the actual game.
The who won question. Their mom would ask after every game. So who won?
And the narrator just rarely knew, unless it was like the big rival.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the score was completely irrelevant.
And you can feel the mom's confusion. How are you in the band and you don't know who won? For the narrator, the football game was just the stage for the show. The game was the intermission.
Which, speaking of different realities, we have to talk about the solo. Or the solo that wasn't a solo.
This is such a classic example of parental pride, just, bending reality a little bit.
So the third trumpets, plural, had a 5-note solo in a song. It was a section feature. 3 people playing together.
But the mother's pride just filtered out the other 2 kids. She heard those 5 notes, and in her mind, that was only her child playing.
And the narrator tried to correct her. Mom, it's 3 of us. But she would not hear it. To her, that was her kid playing a solo for the whole town. The narrator says they didn't live that one down all year.
It's sweet, and it's funny, but as we go deeper into this source, we have to acknowledge that the high school experience wasn't all just misunderstandings and baton twirling.
Right. And this is where our deep dive has to get a bit heavier. We need to pivot to the darker reality that the source talks about. Because up to this point, it's been challenging, but sort of wholesome.
The source makes a very abrupt and very serious turn here. It states very clearly that, unfortunately, the sexual abuse continued.
And the whole context changes. It's a bigger school now. The narrator points out that meant more boys around, more older boys around.
Which for them meant more opportunities for this abuse to happen. But what's so striking and so psychologically complex is how the narrator describes the behavior of these boys.
It was the hypocrisy. That's really the only word for it. The source explains that the same boys who were picking on the narrator in public,
the very same ones,
were the ones sending signals that they were, quote, okay to hook up after school.
It's a devastating dynamic for a young person to navigate. The source describes it as this understood agreement. They could be on the down low with the narrator.
On the down low. That phrase just carries so much weight. It means this thing exists, but it can never be acknowledged in daylight.
And it places the entire burden of that silence on the victim. Think about the power dynamic. The bullies maintain their public social status by targeting the narrator. They perform hostility for their friends.
But in private, they exploit the narrator for intimacy. The narrator says, even if the boys knew about each other, the rule was that the narrator could never, ever tell a soul.
It's a conspiracy of silence. And the narrator looks back on it and says they were amazed by it. But at the time, they kept the secret. They played their part in that twisted contract.
And the source does briefly mention a specific forced incident later in their sophomore year. We don't need to go into the details, but it's important to acknowledge this wasn't just fooling around. This was predation.
Absolutely. And knowing that, it recontextualizes that whole summer of transition. We started with the innocent struggle of a trumpet, but when you understand this undercurrent of abuse, the narrator's resilience becomes even more incredible.
It really does. Because despite all of that, the bullying, the pressure, the confusion, they still found these pockets of joy. They still learned the majorette routines. They still felt that pride when their mom thought they had a solo.
And that's really the synthesis here. Adolescence is almost never just one thing. It's not just the wonder years, and it's not just a horror story. It's this messy, complicated mix of both.
The narrator was living in, 3 different worlds at once? The world of the dutiful son playing the trumpet.
The world of the secret majorette.
And the world where they were navigating this dark, abusive social pyramid and surviving all of them. So just to recap, we started in the summer of 1980. We saw a mother sacrifice her tax return for her kids' dreams. We saw the narrator struggle just to make a sound.
We survived band camp, the heat, the mosquitoes. We watched the narrator navigate body image and find a new passion and secret, mastering the timing of the baton.
And then we confronted the harsh reality of a social hierarchy that allowed for public bullying and private exploitation.
This source, this transcript, it gives us a window into one specific life, but I think it reflects a much broader truth about the masks we all wear.
That's a great way to put it. The masks. Everyone in this story is wearing one.
The narrator wore the mask of a trumpet player. The bullies wore masks of hostility. Even the mom was wearing these rose-colored glasses that turned a section feature into a solo performance.
Everyone is performing something. Which brings us to our final thought for you, our listener. We've all been through high school. We've all been on the field or in the stands.
And we tend to look back on our own stories, our own struggles, our own solos. We're the main character in our own memories, right?
But I want you to think about the people who are on the sidelines of your high school movie. The kid in the band, the jock, the quiet person in the back of the class.
If everyone is performing, what signals did you miss?
What was really happening on the down low in the hallways of your school? Who was carrying a secret burden while everyone else was just asking who won the game? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.